Okay, everyone, are we ready now?
Am I gonna just hide my video?
I'll move you, Heather. Oh, okay, we do have attendees.
All right, good.
Piling in now. Thank you,
Okay.
Heather.
All right. Well, I'm not able to see who has joined at this point, but I know we have some participants. But I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Don Staniszewski. I'm with the National Home Delivery Association, and this is the fourth in the series by our Women's Delivery Council of Well-Behaved Women Rarely Make History. And today's program is entitled Investing in Your People. And I will turn it over to Patty Johnston, one of our chairpersons here. And Patty, why don't you take it from here?
Great, thanks, Don. Welcome everyone to our first webinar of 2022. I also want to welcome Leslie Bellis, who is my new co-chair on the Women's Council. This is Leslie's first webinar as a moderator. She's been a participant before, so we're really happy to have her. And I am very excited about today's panelist. I had the opportunity to see Judy Hoberman at the Women in Trucking Accelerate Conference in 2019 and thought she was just fabulous. So that we have her here, I think, is a real treat. Let me tell you a little bit about Judy. Judy is president of Judy Hoberman and Associates, a company which is focused on empowering professional women. She is an award-winning international speaker, a best-selling author, a trainer and leading authority on women in leadership. With over 3 decades in business, she combines wisdom and humor with her behavior shaping exercises, which are often described as transformational. She's been a TEDx speaker discussing prejudging people. She is the author of 4 books, including Selling in a Skirt and Walking on the Glass Floor. Recently, she was named one of 14 sales pros in Building Trust by LinkedIn, as well as Coach of the Year by Powerful Professionals. Judy's mission is very simple: to help one woman a day by following an important philosophy. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. We're going to have, we're kind of changing up the format a little bit. We're going to do sort of a Q&A. So start the questions right away. We'll be bringing them in to questions that we also have prepared. So with that, I will turn it over to Leslie to start off our questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Patty and Judy. We're super excited to have you as our first guest speaker of 2022. So jumping right in, we seem to be in unprecedented times where every industry is experiencing severe labor shortages. Employees and prospective employees appear to be in the driver's seat. How can employers attract and retain talent while still maintaining a productive and profitable environment?
A great question, and thank you all for having me. This to me is kind of like a conundrum because everyone is offering higher pay and no one seems to want to work, or that's kind of what we hear. But many times it's about the culture and the way employers are inviting people in. And I'm not talking about like having a written invitation, but I'm saying that people want to be invited to stay rather than being invited to leave. So some of the things that employers can do is perhaps create a consistent message. Your message needs to communicate what your business stands for and how it represents itself. And make sure that the brand reflects what your business is doing, because a lot of times people are looking for a company that has a social cause that they're interested in or that they're supporting. And if it's something that they believe in, they're more apt to join and to stay. But it is really about the culture. What is your culture? It shouldn't be something that, they write it on the walls with the mission and vision statement. It has to be something that we feel and we want to be part of. And is it in alignment with our core values, or are we really just compromising ourselves? Because this is real stuff. This is not, just one at a time. There's so many people that are not working that should be working. And there's so many people that want to work and they can't find what they really want to do. There's hundreds and hundreds of people every single day that are not finding where they should be working or where they fit. But on to top it all off, though, you have to create an environment where you are treating your current employees with respect, because when you do treat them with respect, you're inviting them to stay. And that's what I'm talking about. You have to know who your people are. When you don't just invite them to stay, you are asking them to leave in a very it's an unprecedented time, but it's an unprecedented way to leave. There's one employer out there that is offering people $2,000 after 2 weeks to leave. So to me, it's almost like, the prenup, you're doing something because you think something's going to happen. It's kind of weird. But the last thing I would say, which is a no-brainer, is you have to be able to pay for the talent that you want, but you can't pay employees more than you can afford, because that's the conundrum. So it's not always about the money, it's about the flexibility. And that's a major attraction to many candidates all over in every industry. And make sure that you're networking in places where you can find these wonderful people and engage them on social media. So that's one of the things that I would say.
Hey, Judy, if I can interject here, what was that quote that you said? I really like that. Want to be invited to stay. And what was the second half of that?
Don't invite them to leave.
Okay.
Because that's really what's happening. When if I offer somebody a position, I want them to come in, I want them to stay, and I want to tell them why all the great things that we're going to be able to do for them, invest in them. If I don't care, then I'm really inviting them to just leave, come and then go or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so speaking about our unprecedented times, what are your, and obviously this is an opinion question. Do you believe that the permanent telecommuter and hybrid work environments are here to stay? Or do you think it's just a function of the pandemic and we'll get back to normal at some point?
No. I don't think we're ever going to get back to any kind of normal, honestly, but absolutely it's going to stay, because what we found during the past, I don't know, is it 22 months now? I don't even know, I've stopped counting, is that just about any position and in any industry can be quite successful working from home. It's been very interesting and eye-opening for me with all the industries before the pandemic that said they would never allow their employees to work from home. It wasn't possible, couldn't do it, can't do your job, it's not happening. And then enter March 13th, 2020. And guess what? It can be done. Almost every industry has done it, because otherwise they would have no business. For me personally, as a speaker and a trainer, I lost all my business. And now, it came back virtually. But my clients are also excited that they're not paying any travel expenses, because everything I do can be done without leaving my home. So I think it's here to stay. I think there is going to be more hybrid. There are more speakers going out, not as much as they were. None of us are, but it is going to be more of a hybrid. A lot of the big companies are finding that you're more productive when you're doing things from home because you're doing it on your own time. So yeah, I think it's absolutely here to stay.
And then what new challenges do employers face in culturally integrating new remote employees, and what new tools do employers need to engage in?
So that it's hard for both sides. It's hard for the employee to feel connected, but it's also hard for the employer to make sure that they're managing expectations for everyone. So one of the things that I think is really a great way to look at it is, what if you focus on the what rather than the when? So if you have a project that's due, instead of saying I need it done by 3 o'clock on Friday, you need a project that's done by the end of the week, because most of the time people are going to do it when it's due anyway. But if you focus on what rather than when, and have that fist that's always pounding saying do this, it's going to be different when you're working from home. You also have to make sure that everyone knows that they're part of the team. It doesn't matter that everybody's spread out all over the place. You have to bring them in, whether it's a weekly meeting or a daily meeting or whatever it is that you can do. You have to make sure that everybody feels part of the team, because otherwise they're not going to be engaged. So do you have a regular check-in established? Does everybody know when it's happening? And how often, if you're going to be doing anything that's hybrid at all, how often are they, required to come in to do a face-to-face meeting? but make sure they feel that there's some kind of connection. If there's a project that you have that's, ordinarily you would do it with one person, maybe you break it up and give it to a number of people. There's all different ways that you can do it, but just make sure that you are managing the expectations for everyone, and they know what to expect and how they can connect and how you can engage with them. The one-on-one meetings now are more important than ever, really more important, because you don't have that time where you could just pop into somebody's office. There's no one there. So now as the employer, I would absolutely have one-on-one meetings, not for an hour and a half or 2 hours, even if it's just a little check-in, because that keeps people engaged.
We have a question from our audience, going back to one of the comments you made before. Why would someone offer $2,000 to leave after 2 weeks? Can you explain the reasoning there?
I think it's kind of crazy. It's not something that I would recommend, but the reason why he's doing it is because he's getting rid of them. It's not like they're going to hang on forever, and then there's all going to be all kinds of other things, other issues that come up. I can't even tell you who it is because I read it so fast and I thought this is just bizarre. But truly, if you think about it, he brought them in, realized they weren't the best, but doesn't want them hanging on because they're making a good living. So he's offering them, a couple of $1,000s just to go. So it's not me. I don't know, but that's what they're doing.
So it's kind of like a dress rehearsal, and you get paid a little bit of a bonus after 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you're gone.
It's one of the. I think it's a Silicon Valley company. I don't remember.
I think it is
I saw
also
the article too.
I think it is also. Yeah, and I think he raised it up to 5,000. But he's very happy because the other people that are staying. See, that's where you have to remember, you have people that are already there. The people that are staying realize that they are really important. And so he's investing in them as well because he's giving them, a future. Whereas this one is not getting a future. This one is in and out and be done. And so he doesn't have to worry about all the other stuff that comes up with it. You're here 6 months or a year and you're horrible. And we really didn't want you after 2 weeks, but we've been paying you all this money and the benefits and all of that. So he's just, he's cutting those losses.
It's almost a severance.
Right. It's like a mini severance.
Yeah.
But then it is, but the flip side of that, even though it seems sort of counterintuitive, it is really showing the people that they're there, that they are the A team, they are the best.
Right.
They're the ones that are making it.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, when you invest in your people that are there already, now they know, well, if I was, if you didn't want me, you would have booted me out the door. But now I know I'm here and I'm valuable. So now you have to capitalize on that. And, the retention part is always more difficult than the recruiting part. The retention is always harder. So you have to really make time for your people.
Right.
So I guess in kind of staying on course with just, I guess, how to be more effective in a virtual world, but then also how does a manager continue to lead a team when we're virtual, right? I know you said one-on-one meetings are more important than ever, but what other suggestions do you have for managers to be more effective in leading their teams?
Okay, so when we were all told to stay home, some of us have already been working from home, and it's just who we are. But some people were not prepared. Some people were not ready for this, and some people would never choose to be working at home. So you have to remember that being home, you feel left out, and it's also very lonely, and it's not for everybody. Okay, so just remember that part. As a great employer, you have to be a little bit creative, and maybe you would have like a virtual morning, morning coffee scheduled, and just pretend you're having coffee in person, and you could do it on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is. And if they were in the office with you, you probably wouldn't be grilling them about their work first thing in the morning. So don't do it virtually either. Invite them for coffee. I mean, how many times, I don't know if you've done this, but I know for me, I've done lunch with people, virtual lunches, virtual coffees, virtual happy hours, because it keeps people together. You can also do something which was really fun, which I've been invited to a couple of these, where you have a team meeting and do something out of the ordinary, have a theme. One of them was tutus, like everybody had to wear a tutu. Can you imagine? Okay, but it breaks the ice and it keeps people, laughing and fun. There was one that was, you had to wear a hat. And my husband is retired colonel from the Air Force. So he had the whole gas mask and everything, the whole thing. And I wore that. I could wear it for about 3 minutes because it was so heavy. But everybody was taking pictures of what everybody looked at. It was just fun. when you have a team meeting, invite everyone on your team, even if they're brand spanking new and you've never met them because they were hired during the pandemic. So you want to just remember there's some things where you can bring people in, and remember that you as the employer has to convey the culture and the messaging. So if you want them to stay, invest in them. And that can be as easy as giving some of your time, one-on-one meeting, having coffee, things like that. It's not that difficult. And, people are getting used to this already. What I also find about doing things virtually is you're seeing people in their natural habitat, and it's much more personal. So you're seeing people, with kids, or you're seeing the dog or the cat running across the keyboard, or you're hearing the baby crying, or you're hearing the dog barking, or, they're still on mute and all you see is their mouth moving. It's real life. And so give yourself grace as an employer or an employee, just have grace and just know this is the way that you get to meet people in their own special place in their home. Of course, you want to make sure everybody is dressed. That's another thing.
So in surveys, when employees are surveyed about what are the most important things to them, it's surprising to a lot of people that compensation will be third, fourth, or even fifth most important.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some non-financial things that employers can do to invest in their employees? Rather than the $2,000
right. Yeah, right. That's true. I was just going to say, other than the 2000. So you have to remember that this is true whether you're working in person or working virtually, especially with women. If you ask women what the most important things are, their money is going to be 3, 4, or 5, or even lower, because there's other things that they're looking for. Money's not always the driving factor with men or women. Employees are looking for culture. They're looking for social causes. They're looking flexibility so that they can create that, elusive balance. They're looking for time off. They're looking for one-on-one time with their employer, but they're also looking for ways to grow in their roles and have the ability to take a course. They want to advance. They want a promotion. So you have to be open to them. They want to be valued, but most of all, people are looking for recognition. When I was an agency manager in financial services, we would do something every month, and it would be a product that either the investors wanted to introduce, or it was something, but there was always something that we had to promote. And so we had this trophy board, and I'm telling you, it was a little square board. It was wood. And whoever did the most of whatever it was, they would get a little plaque with their name engraved on it, and it was $3.75. You would have thought it was $3 million, because a lot of people have never seen their name in lights, whether it's in an article with published or anything. Well, here's their name. And so we put it on this board, and every month they would come in to see whose name was on the board. And if somebody was there twice in a row, they were not happy. They wanted to make sure that their name was on the board. $3.75, recognition. That's what people are looking for. They want to know that they are valued. And that's the most important thing. If you're not valued, you can go anywhere and do anything. But I always laugh at that, because you cannot believe how people would fight for this $3.75 name.
That's fun. Yeah, we've started looking at a brag box where you can just brag on a fellow employee or peer that have done something great, and it's simple, it's free, right? It's just a submission.
Right.
So we hear a lot, and arguably maybe too much, about the demands of working millennials and the satisfaction of their needs. While employers today seem to be more flexible than they have ever been, how flexible is too flexible?
Well, I have to say that I don't believe it's only the millennials that have demands today. I really don't. With the Great Resignation, everyone is asking for whatever they can and negotiating for everything else. Being flexible is great, but if the employee wants flexibility from the employer, there needs to be flexibility from the employee to the employer as well. So you can't just be so flexible that everybody's walking all over you. For example, if an employer gives an employee the flexibility that they want, the employee has to accept some of that, push and pull, give and take to ensure that business gets done and that the goals or whatever the expectations are met. Some people believe that having flexibility in your work week is going to decrease team productivity, but it's absolutely the other way around. It's found that flexibility was the #1 driver of productivity. They did a research, there was research done, and 43% of employees had more productivity than not. Flexibility can make employees more productive, not less. So, but it requires accountability. Flexibility comes with a trade-off, more communication, more accountability, and more reasons to do what you do. So there is a thing of too much flexibility, of being, the doormat, but you can give as long as you're also going to receive. And that's what happens with flexibility.
We have another audience question.
Mhm.
People change. What do you do about an investment gone bad? Investment gone bad is in quotes, so I think it means an investment in a person. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't be 100% positive that anything's going to work. A lot of times you look at somebody and you say, oh my goodness, they are going to be the best. They're going to be the big rock star that we need. And they're not. Or you look at somebody that's really quiet and you think, oh, what a mistake. And it isn't. So you never know. You can't ever be 100% sure, guaranteed that anything's going to work. If it doesn't work, the saying where they say, hire slowly, fire quickly. So you should take your time before you hire people and really make sure that that person is going to be good for your team. There's a lot of people that do like a probation period. I hate the word probation because it sounds bad, but it's kind of like a trial run. And they'll say that there's, in the first month or 2 months or 90 days or whatever you want to give them, we're going to make sure that this works for both of us. And if it doesn't, we'll be done and no hard feelings and be done. So you could do something like that. However, if it's gone on and on and on, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, you have to have a sit down. You have to sit down with them and have a conversation. Getting rid of somebody is never fun. If you're in a big company, there's HR, so you don't necessarily have to do it yourself. But if you're in a small company, you probably have to do it yourself. And I would just, okay, for instance, I had somebody that worked for me who was in financial services, and he was horrible. I inherited him because I had taken over another office. He was horrible and I didn't know what to do. So what I did do was I pulled out every single report possible. He was a manager, every report about being managers. And I called him into my office and I said, John, I want you to look at these and tell me what you see. And he looked at every single report and he said, you know what, Judy, I shouldn't be a manager. Now, my instinct was to say, are you sure? Like, you really don't want to be a manager, even though I didn't want him to be a manager anymore. So I had to really be careful because I would have talked him right back into what I didn't want. So I said, well, tell me why you see this. He said, I'm the bottom of every manager's report. I'm not growing. And he talked himself out of it. And he asked if it was okay if he could step back and be a producer. That was easier than saying, you're horrible, get out. So, you wouldn't say that anyway, but you have to nip it in the bud because they become a cancer in your group. So I would say, have a sit down, find out what's going on with them. There could be other issues that you don't even know about. And that's why we all call, know your people. You have to know what's going on. But the other part of it is, if it's not going to work, just say, this is not working for either one of us. So let me help you find another position. I've taken out, years ago, I've taken out newspapers and I've helped people look for another job because it wasn't right for me and it wasn't right for them. So you just have to be kind. Don't be horrible about it. And I always do exit interviews and tell me, why this is not working for you or working for me.
Hey, Judy, if you don't mind me sharing something, I see Mike Remick and Kevin Allen are on the call here as well. And we used to have a wall of shame and, a wall of fame, excuse me. But we would do, once a year, we would give out a horse's ass trophy to try to shame someone into improving. Well, it never worked. All right. They always ended up getting fired. And just like you said, we probably should have cut our losses and done it quickly. Instead, we gave out this trophy each year to try to get people to improve, and it did not work. So anyways, that's one of my failures in my career.
Isn't that like a participant's trophy that all the kids get in soccer or softball? Everybody gets it no matter what, no matter who you are, you're all getting one because you showed up. That's not, that doesn't work either because people don't even know what happens if I'm like the best or what happens if I'm the worst. No matter what, I'm getting a trophy. Patty, you were going to say something.
Yeah, Don, if I can just chime in as an insurance person, I would really try to dissuade you from doing something like that, just to save you from having an EPLI claim. I actually worked for an agency about 22 years ago, and we had the Suckling Pig Award. And so it's kind of like, how can you possibly think that this is a good idea? So, yeah.
All right, I hear you.
The suckling pig, the horse's ass, stop it.
It was a neat looking trophy though, I tell you.
I bet it was, but you have to also remember that people do have feelings, even if they're, horrible people, they do have feelings, and sometimes you're just hurting their feelings. And I know that we're not supposed to, worry about everybody's feelings, but the truth of the matter is people are people. And if they're going to leave, let them leave. Just let them leave with some dignity. That's all I would say.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, let's go back to some questions.
Mhm.
Judy, how can a manager be more effective in leading a team?
There's so many different ways that you could do that. The thing that I always say is that in order for you to really be effective, you have to know your people. Like, seriously have to know your people. You have to know what drives them, why they showed up, what their why is. You have to know what's going on. When I would hire people, I would ask them a question. I would say, tell me how you see yourself in this company. I didn't say 5 years or 10 years. I just said, tell me how you see yourself. And there was only 3 things they would tell me. I just want to be a producer, meaning that I don't want any other responsibility other than to myself. And I would say, that's great. Let me show you the journey. Or they'd say, I want to go into management. I'd say, that's great. Let me show you the journey. Or they would say, I want your job. I'd say, awesome. Let me show you the journey. Because I would know, first of all, they would know what they had to do, whether it was a certification, whether it was a designation, whatever it was, they knew what their journey was going to be. I also knew what drove them. Okay, so to me, I was able to help them. If Don had said, well, okay, so I want to go into management, and you had to take these 3 designations and you only did 2 and you wanted to know why you weren't in it, I can say easily, you've got 1 more. Okay, you also want to know what drives them outside of work. Like, what do they love to do? What do they hate to do? Just so you have some kind of like benchmark. I always knew who was part of their family, because if I would ask them to do a trade show or something, they would know. I would meet their family, and they would know who their mom or dad was hanging out with this weekend at a trade show. So they would say, oh, so you're with Judy? Oh, that's cool, and I would invite them to the trade show. It wouldn't matter to me because I knew who they were. When I didn't know somebody, that's when it went south. That would be when it went south, because I couldn't do anything about it. I had nothing. I had nothing to offer them because I had no idea where they wanted to go, what they wanted to be. You can do so much when you know your people. When you're in sales, when you come in and your manager says to you, did you make a sale? It's either yes or no, right? It's not maybe. There's no maybe in sales, right? But when I would say no, my manager would be jumping on my head and saying, well, what do you mean no? They're like, I taught you how to do this. And the next part of my sentence would have been, but I'm picking up the check tomorrow. So you have to listen. You have to know your people, and then you have to listen. If you don't listen, how are you going to get any? How are you going to learn anything? Because that's the biggest thing. That's why there's 2 ears, 1 mouth. I have lots of cliches I could tell you, but the truth is you have to listen. If somebody wants to say something to you, don't cut them off so quickly. Don't roll your eyes. Just be part of it. Again, be present.
Do you have suggestions and advice to all of us out here of how to be more effective in a virtual world?
Well, I think that, part of the things are what I said, create the culture, create the opportunities for people to connect with each other. There's nothing lonelier than being the only person sitting in your house. Like, okay, who do I talk to now? And then what happens is you don't want to do anything because you don't feel like you've been part of the team. You just need to be part of something. As the employee, if I'm feeling lonely, then I need to be able to say, could we have a meeting once a week? Or is there something coming up that we can all get onto a Zoom call? Or it's somebody's birthday, can we celebrate together? Things like that. You have to be a little bit creative. Again, if you know your people, you know what's happening. If you don't hear from your people, then that's not good either. You have to have something that brings them into the fold. And in the virtual world, we can do this all day long. At least you would see each other, but you can't be on Zoom all day long either. So you have to, do things in little spurts, little bites.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions coming in from the audience?
Here's what I would say about a lot of these things. You have the ability in this environment, you have the ability to really grow, and you just have to decide what it is you want. For lack of anything else, you have to know your why. You always have to know your why. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you're not in sales. I don't care if you're male or female, young or old. You have to know why you do what you do. If you don't have that drive, if you can't describe what makes you move every single day, then you might as well not do anything, because there's nothing moving you. And again, I can only go back to financial services because that's where I came from. But when I first started, I hated it more than life. I hated every minute of it. There was no training. There was no mentoring. There was nothing about learning your products. They would hand you a brochure and say, go sell it. How do you sell it if you don't even know what you're selling? So it was a very lonely existence. I was also a single mom at the time. And I remember thinking every day I would take my kids to school, and then I would say, oh, I have to drive, 2 hours. I don't even know who's going to show up because I didn't sell on the phone. I was in person, and it would be horrible till I got there. Then it was awesome. Then back, it was the same thing every single day. One day, I remember getting my kids ready, and I looked at them and I said, these are the two most amazing humans in the entire world. And my only job is to protect them. And on the cartoons, when all of a sudden there's like that neon light bulb above your head, that's what happened. I saw this above my head and I thought, this is why I do this. If I could protect my family, why can't I protect everybody else's? So I drove my kids to school, and I remember taking the rearview mirror, looking into the mirror and saying, today I have the privilege of protecting a family. Everything changed at that moment. Everything changed. I was excited about going to work. I was excited about sales. I was excited about driving. I was excited about everything. People would have me on the phone and they would say, I don't care what you're selling. I just want to meet you because you're so excited. I was excited about making phone calls. I was excited about insurance. How do you, that's like an oxymoron, but I was excited because I knew my why. That's what it is. So no matter who you are, no matter where you are, whether you're starting a new position, whether you're looking for a new job, whether you're an employer who has, a whole bunch of a team, if you have one person on your team, whoever you are, know your why, know why you do what you do. Because when you know this, it's going to answer so many questions for you. It's a very lonely existence when you're just doing things, it's like, I'm doing it rote. Okay, I got to go do this. I got to get up. It's like Groundhog Day every day. That's what I felt like, Groundhog Day. Get my kids to school, drive in my car, come back, pick my kids up, but once I got it, I got it. And that's what I'm saying, doesn't matter if you are somebody that is an employee, if you are somebody that's a consultant, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what level you are. There are people that are very lonely out there. And today we need connection more than ever. So find it, ask yourself, what's your why? I make people do, writing exercises, describing their why and keeping it in front of them so they remember, because when you're home by yourself, you might forget it. So that's what I would say.
That's great advice. I think it's probably really start to reflect on that too, right? It's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
So in today's time, right, with COVID and some kids still being remote places, and with elderly parents who might need taken care of, do you see any type of shift in the workforce between men and women, where more women are staying home versus the men? Or
there's a lot more women staying home. Women have been the hardest hit of everybody in the pandemic because they are staying home more. Their kids are, being homeschooled. Their parents might be home. Whatever it is, women are taking the brunt of it. Not to say men aren't. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying women, according to statistics, have been the biggest hit, that market for during the pandemic. We've always felt like we've had two jobs, one that you do outside of the home, and then when you come home, you have another job. I have to make dinner, I have to clean, I have to cook, I have to take care of the kids are sick, I have to take them to the doctor, this can't go to work today, all this kind of stuff. And we've always had that. What I will say is that people are searching, men and women are searching for this work-life balance. And I'm going to burst your bubble right now. There is no such thing as work-life balance. No such thing. It's a myth. You're never going to find it. What I would say is, instead of trying to do 50% here, 50% there, because what'll happen if somebody says your kid got sick, come to school, you can't say, well, I'm in my 50% work time, so I'm gonna have to wait. You can't do that, you run, right? So what I would say is, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether it's work or home, be present. Find the harmony in that, be present. Because if you need to stay home while your kids are being homeschooled, and I give parents a lot of credit. My kids are grown, and I'm not sure how I would homeschool and try to work at the same time. I think that's a big deal right now. But if you are home, be home and be present. If you know that your kids have to be online, at 9 o'clock in the morning, don't schedule a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning so you can be on Zoom and everybody's, yelling. Don't do that. So be present wherever you are, find the harmony in it, because when you find harmony, it's much better than this work-life balance that everybody's trying to find, and especially women, and especially in today's environment.
Oh, I think that's a great point. Everybody talks about work-life balance, but it's very difficult today with smartphones and computers and everything. It's a different world.
Well, do you remember when the Apple Watch first came out? I do not own one. I never want one. I remember sitting across from a colleague, and every few minutes he'd be looking at his watch. And I kept thinking to myself, like after 5 or 6 times, I thought, oh my God, am I that boring? Really, because I had no idea what he was doing. And I said to him, what's in the watch? He goes, oh, it's an Apple Watch. I said, what's an Apple Watch? He said, seriously? I'm like, yeah, no, tell me what an Apple Watch is. He said, I get all my texts and all my emails. I said, oh, so even worse, because it's there. So I'm not that important to you. Can you not be present for 5 minutes? And he said, okay. And he kept, so I said, give me your watch. And I just said, let's put it over here for a minute, because it's very difficult. Everybody has an attention span of 3 seconds. So again, know your people, know your family. I think the greatest thing from this pandemic is that families came back together to have meals, because you couldn't go anywhere. So they're back at the table. So when you think about the time you're spending with your family, think about when you spend time with your employees. It's the same thing. Just be present, even if it's 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be 5 hours. That's what you have to remember. It's important for you to come together as a community. And that's the connection is a basic human need, and we don't have that. And that's why, all the things that I do is I connect people. I make sure that I bring people together, because that's what they're looking for more than anything in a job, more than anything. They just want to be connected. And so if you can connect people and make them feel wanted, invited, there's nothing better than that.
Wanting to be invited to stay. I love that line. That's great, Judy.
You may use it anytime you want, Don.
I think we are just about up to our time limit. If there are no more questions, we'll take this opportunity to thank Judy for doing such a great job and putting on such a great seminar for us today. I think we all are walking away with a lot of new information and sort of inspiring ideas. And that's certainly what I had gotten from you at the Accelerate conference. And Don, do you want to do a commercial?
Yeah.
Because you always do a commercial.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. And as you know, we have our member update call next Tuesday. So we'll look forward to seeing you all then. That's all I have. And Judy, once again, thank you. And Leslie and Patty, thank you again. And Heather and Phil for putting this together. Have a great day, everybody. And thank you again. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Ladies.